Coming soon to own on
YouTube
video
and
and
Twitch.
DVD.
The original Despicable Me. I know the Despicable Me, like it's like a child's movie, but like the concept of it is already dark, like the minions and all that. So I'm kind of curious how the original was supposed to be. That being said, let's get straight into it.
Next, we are going to steal the moon!
The moon.
People think about Despicable Me, they usually think about the movie we all know today, a goofy supervillain who slowly learns to become a father, and of course, the minions. But what's
Yeah.
interesting is that this was not actually the movie Illumination originally set out to make. At first, it was an entirely different movie called Evil Me, created by the
Evil
former
Me.
Disney animator Sergio Pablos, who pitched it to Chris Meledandri, who was looking for a film to launch his new company Illumination Entertainment. When he got his hands on the project, production was fast-tracked in order to release it before Megamind, which at the time felt extremely similar. Many of the core ideas remained the same, but the tonal and stylistic ideas are what went through the most significant development.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I feel like, yeah, the villain aspect is like the main character, but Megamind and Despicable Me are like kind of two different types of movies. But I understand like big movies coming out around the same time. Only one's gonna get prioritized.
To create this original pitch, Sergio Pablos asked one singular question: is someone destined to be evil, or can they change? That simple question became the foundation for a project called Evil Me, a story about a supervillain named Gru, which was spelled very differently during this era of the film. Anyways, unlike the final movie, which
This some shit like, how do I explain this style? This some shit Disney will make after having a hit live action movie. Like this the slop they'll put out
very differently during this era
for
of
a
the film.
four-season TV
Anyways,
show.
unlike the final movie, which spends a lot of time making Gru funny and sympathetic, Evil Me fully embraced the idea that its protagonist was a genuine supervillain. In the final film, sure, Gru does do mean things, but what he does amounts to an inconvenience at most. He's not someone who would genuinely hurt people. This is different from the original story, where Gru
They
was
just
portrayed as genuinely mean-spirited, shown in art where he wears slippers made from dead bunnies and brushes his teeth using toothpaste made from grounded teeth. Despite how different the tone was, the emotional heart of the story was already there. The villain would slowly become a father figure after adopting 3 young girls, who in this version were significantly younger. So although the movie would undergo massive changes during production, the central idea of an evil man learning to love never actually disappeared. Everything surrounding that idea,
they kind of stay
however,
the same.
changed dramatically, such as Gru's design. Compared to the final design, Gru looks significantly more intimidating. He has a much
100%.
more aggressive face, much larger nose,
Like this is like a real villain. Let me just keep it a buck. Gru, like the movie Gru we got, he's cool. Like he's a good villain, but a lot of stuff he does is more just inconveniences. His original one, he does a lot of crazy stuff.
darker clothing, and in many of these drawings, he almost resembles Dracula or Nosferatu more than the dad bod, big-nosed character in the final film. Some designs even gave him shoulder armor, military-style coats, oversized collars, and much more dramatic
I don't know why, but he's reminding me of that one villain from How to Train Your Dragons with the black hair. I can't remember his name.
and almost emo-like silhouettes. He genuinely looks like the type of villain that would terrify children, and Pablos and the artists clearly wanted to embrace the idea that this man truly was a malevolent
Thank
figure,
God that
something
wasn't
that's
a
even
Gru design.
showcased with his house, which in this version was a giant factory-like fortress, unlike the more unassuming black house in the final version. What's interesting is that you can actually watch his design become more friendly throughout development. You see, when the directors of the film came in, they wanted to take a much more James Bondian kind of approach to the villain, something like Dr. No. As a result, Gru's design became a lot less terrifying over time. These concepts
God damn.
As a result, Gru's design
This is this is some bullshit. I mean, what the fuck?
became a lot less terrifying over time. These concepts would continue over time, leaving behind the iconic
See, and this is where we came to a middle ground. I see it now because they had the fat version and then the skinny version with the nose, and then it added it all together.
Rounded villain. However, what's interesting is that Gru's design was based on a different character in the art. Kyle, who in the final film is a dog, was originally a human assistant, and based on the art and in
Wow.
the storyboards, you can clearly tell that Kyle is basically just Gru. So at some point during development, they just decided to use Kyle's design for Gru while turning Kyle into a dog.
Actually, never. You would have never guessed. It's
At this
actually
point in the
insane.
film's development, the minions did not exist in any form. Instead of tiny yellow creatures, Gru originally commanded supervillain-like characters. They look large and intimidating, and honestly they look exactly like the kind of henchmen you'd expect from a serious supervillain. During development, however, the filmmakers realized something interesting. The less intimidating Gru's assistants looked, the more soft he felt as a result. So artists kept shrinking the henchmen. Eventually the henchmen were portrayed as robots, and then
Mm.
people, and eventually they decided to meld robots, humans,
So this was the first rendition of a minion.
and
That's actually insane.
monsters to create something more in between. They took influence from
From the Oompa
creatures like Oompa
Loompas.
Loompas to help guide the design process, eventually streamlining them until they look like the minions in the film. There was one more character who went through some dramatic development before
Victor
the
went
final
through a
film,
change?
which would be the villain Vector. The intention of his character was to be Gru's rival in the film, a younger and more creative villain who really tested Gru's insecurity about his own self-worth. Vector's design is pretty average in the final film, likely because he was meant to be unassuming for the purpose of the plot, but in the early concept art,
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie, that's tough. My boy Vic got nerfed in the final plot. Like, if I seen this, this is a real villain.
for the film, Vector was a completely different
Oh, nah, Vector got nerfed. But I'm not gonna lie, for the plot and the way his character was supposed to be, his final design represents it perfectly. But if he would have looked like this, whew, that would have been tough.
character and looked different as well. His name was Hindsight, and this time
Hindsight?
around, he took on a much more superhero-esque appearance. Despite the major aesthetical difference, Hindsight maintained the same idea of being a technological genius. Anyways, based on what you've heard, do you prefer Evil Me and these
That was the original Despicable Me. Now I feel like the original version with Gru at least. Thank God that that wasn't the final design. With Victor, I would say the original version of his designs was way cooler. But for Victor's character and what they was trying to do with his character, I think his modern design or the final design was the best option because he wasn't supposed to be all that tough or like he wasn't supposed to look that cool. That's his whole character. But let me know how y'all feel about that. That being said, I'll see y'all later.
I'm not trying to score. Your heart's an open door. I got the key. I'm trying to keep composure and some more. I know you want some more. Oh, oh. Can your body hear me? Want you to feel me?